gatherings where everybody is always there. So to have the 34 athletic trainers together, that was beneficial enough. So.
Where do you think this is headed?
What is this?
I mean, every aspect of the student, the proposed student league. Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, the notion that's proposed as a student should bring a wry smile to everyone's face. I've said, I think back to media days, just up the street here, we're responsible for solving our problems, meeting our challenges. I still think that way.
I think Texas sent an email to donors saying they probably need $11 million more for just covering the costs of attendance, all inclusive for football. Is that something you get is kind of similar among all your member institutions?
I'm not on anybody's donor list, so I don't have that one from Portland State.
But among yours,
sure. I mean, there's a 22% potential outflow from an athletic department if the settlement's finalized. So everybody's incentive to that. In fact, to Kirk's question, just understanding the individual reactions and how they think about that and the information they need was important. So yeah, everyone's attentive to that change.
Now, let's talk about a Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance.
No, I don't use the word alliance. Never have. That's others.
What term would you like to use? And is
Well,
that reality?
we have, we put up on a screen where we already have scheduling. We have football games scheduled in particular. So I think come 25, 26, 27, there's like 5 or 6 games within a season. You go back to the late 20-teens, like the COVID year, we didn't have any games scheduled in non-conference. So there's a set of options. One, you let that scheduling approach operate as is, which is the schools keep together. One of the questions is, should we be more intentional with the 2 conference offices coordinating? And there's no definitive there, just a conversation. Having been in Ann Arbor, it was like 45 degrees cooler, I think, for week 2.
Yeah.
And you see the scope of that game, it makes you think about it more of those opportunities.
Right. As far as the college football playoff, y'all kind of, I don't know if the table is right. You want to see how it unfolds this first year, but is there?
And again, I'll be clear about that. I think there were some over predictions of something.
Right.
With the change that's coming, my statement after was we need to make sure the 12-team playoff operates at a very high level, operates with the level of excellence. And that's not about selection of teams from the SEC. That's just about making it work. First round games on campus is different. The number of rounds will be different. The number of teams will be different. It's not like going from 2 to 4. This is an exponentially greater reality. So we went through those issues and we looked at future format decision making, but we didn't spend any time on it.
Increased games between the SEC and Big Ten would seem like it would portend staying with an 8-game conference schedule. Is that correct?
Not necessarily.
Do you sense any momentum to stick with the 8 conference games among ADs and
Well, we're
presidents?
at 8 this year. We're at 8 next year, and we're at question mark for 26, and we're working through that.
Right.
There's always been interest within our room in 8 games, and there's interest in 9 games, and there remains interest.
You
What's
don't
the
know.
benefit of a 9-game?
It's a majority vote.
Somebody breaking a tie?
Where it used to be in the Doug Dickey days, it was 7-5 vote. It was unanimous. Then it was 8-6. Now it's 9-7. Carries it down.
What's the benefit of a 9-game conference? I mean, if
Seeing this kind of thing over and over and over, what I saw in Tuscaloosa, what you saw in Nashville last week, Tuscaloosa against Georgia. I was in Oxford for the Kentucky Ole Miss game. I've been in Lexington for Georgia, Kentucky, seeing those games more frequently.
Do you feel like the coaches are against a 9-game?
No, they're going to ask questions. And
Yeah.
they should. I don't. My view is there are no hard positions. There's interest in seeing, for instance, this year. Again, I've shared this. You have within our 16 those very interested in college football playoff selection. So let's go through the year and see what happens. And that was part of my summer communication. There are those who are very attentive to bowl eligibility. So think about that. We've run analytics on that reality. We'll work with TV to see what that means for games and opportunities. We have some rivalry games, but for those to continue every year, you're going to have to change your current scheduling format. We did a really good job in 24-25 honoring those annually expected games, but unless we have some change, that's going to become a bit of a hurdle for us.
Right, there seems to be some consternation between the two other power conferences. The SEC and the Big Ten are making the key decisions here. I just wonder what your reaction is to that, and are you trying to get those other two conferences kind of in the mix to meet with them as well?
I can't speak for them, so I think I've got 2 conference calls in the coming weeks scheduled among the 4 commissioners. We had one the week before. I think Tony and I are fully prepared to walk through the conversations that took place in Nashville. I don't assume people include me in every conversation that they have. So I don't know that I have my own consternation about others that have dialogue. We talked about reality that you're not going to gather 34 athletic directors and keep that a secret. So you guys will tell people, and we did.
What do you think through 7 weeks the returns have been on Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference?
All positive in my experience. Now, I've seen Oklahoma open on a Friday night. That felt like an SEC game. It was pretty cool for me personally to see the SEC logo on the jerseys and on the field. I was up in Ann Arbor. Real quality win there. I spoke, I think, before about it being seamless. I think it's been seamless. The presidents have worked well with their colleagues at the presidential level and the athletics directors as well, including a Feinbaum appearance yesterday.
What's it like to see this game specifically as an SEC game?
It's rewarding. We've had, a 3-year lead-in for this to be an SEC game. I was here for the first half last year and then went down to College Station for the Alabama game, so that was my first time to experience it. I think the people make it special. It's moved to a different league. The game was special, it is special, and will be special.
Is there much significance to the abolition of the national letter? Is it just more protection for the athletes?
Yeah, so I'm not fully an expert on that. I was briefed on it. I think it's just a transition where you're using institutional level and conference level agreements. You keep the same dates. You really haven't upset the apple cart as much as some people have commented. My view is, after I was educated about why the change was appropriate now, that you're still going to have signing dates, you're still going to have the windows during which signing takes place, the documents will be different.
Right.
How gratifying has it been to see Texas rise up to number 1 for the first time in 15 years after joining your league?
Always gratifying. We've had a few ascend to number 1, so it's early. I don't overweight rankings in September and October.
When you were talking about expected rivalries, I'm just trying to clarify. Were you talking about intra-conference, like Auburn, Georgia, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you received a lot of complaints about feigning injuries during the course of play that led to what Ole Miss put out yesterday?
I would say not a lot. So remember, these reports go to the national coordinator of officiating, and decisions are made there. I'm attentive to it. So we've had follow-up, and we'll have follow-up. Don't, if you're me, want to see that at all. If coaches want to propose we have 9 timeouts a half or something, we need to use the timeouts that are allocated. If somebody's injured, we need to take that seriously. But creating the questions, and I mean this all across the country, needs to stop.
Has there been correspondence from you to the schools about that?
Why would I talk about that?
What can officials who are affiliated with your conference do? Can they do anything?
The rules are pretty clear about that, which is you're going to honor what is evaluated as an injury. That's the responsibility of the rules. Now, I think the rules have to change. I think this notion of post-game evaluations that didn't work when targeting was brought into place, and that changed into you make a decision within the game. I think the rules need to adapt. I spent the last couple of weeks in conversation with our officiating leadership, understanding the NFL rules and the treatment here, spend some more time, see if there's anything we can learn, but we're going to have to adapt that part of the game in my view.
Does the SEC consensus favor the shortened windows for the transfer portal, and would the
Yes.
SEC like to see it spring one go away?
We'll see. Save that. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
You look at the research over the first few years of transfer windows and the entry into the portal declaring intent to transfer, it's very high the first few days, and then it ramps down significantly. So, moving through those decisions in the time-efficient manner, that's something of interest for us all, I think.
The SEC seems to have unprecedented parity. 1 week in October, only 3 unbeaten teams left. What's causing that? Is that a national trend? Is that an SEC situation? Or what are you seeing there?
Oh, I've heard a lot of debates there. It's an interesting question. Obviously, we're on the heels of Vanderbilt beating what somebody asked me about Texas being number one last week. Alabama was one. Georgia was one a few weeks ago. What are the reasons for that? Is it the amount of movement? Is it team building? Is it culture? Coaching changes at the head or assistant level? That's one of those, I'm going to guess, multi-factor realities that it's difficult to boil down to one essential issue. The movement probably makes the season a bit more predictable because you have great differences in rosters between four-year transfers and high school entrants, and that part's a bit unprecedented. Now, is that the only thing that happens? I don't think so, but that's certainly one that's on people's minds. It's been exciting, though.
Have you given up hope Congress will help establish any guardrails for
No,
NIL?
no. Some of the feedback is, engage in your own problem solving, and obviously we're in that process. You had a preliminary approval granted by the judge. Does that create some momentum? We're in an election cycle. What are we, 25 or 24 days? I saw. My math may be off. From the presidential election, a third of the Senate, all of the House being up for re-election. So I'll watch that with interest, and we continue to communicate, continue to work, and we'll see what the new Congress brings.
Is the transfer window, as far as minimizing it or trying to shift it, is that more so? You said it ramps down as after the few days of transferring. Is it more so to stop the tampering, or how can you stop that as far as across the course?
I don't think tampering is about the windows. So the declaration windows are all about declaring intent to transfer. You don't have to make decisions about where you're enrolling. We went from 365 days to trying to have an orderly process. You also want a roster to start the season and end the season. And there've always been challenges in that. It just becomes tweetable now, or Xable, I guess, when somebody decides to leave. But people have left teams for decades. My observation statistically is the entry of people, the declarations in the portal go to a high number early, and then they slow down. And I think my personal view is making those decisions and allowing people to move on and start to reset in a time-efficient manner is appropriate.
Greg, do you see this staying as an afternoon game, this Texas Laker game going forward?
Well, it's up to TV, but yeah, I think people like to stay out a little bit later last night for dinner is what I heard walking around, and sleep in a little bit more before heading out to the State Fair, Texas.